Hello, welcome to On a Friday. I am here, half dead, half awake. Went on a sabbatical for 6 days because it felt like months. Me and my co-host, Matt. Matt, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good. I'm just mildly stressed because I was working tomorrow and now I'm not working tomorrow. Instead, I'm working next week, same day but different hours, and it's gonna be at night instead of in the morning. And gotta get my car repaired for things because I'm going on a trip this weekend, and it's just a lot of things happening. I saw Black Widow with some friends this past week, and it was. I mean, the movie was all right, but I mostly enjoyed seeing my friends because I love them so dearly, and I love spending time with them. And also, I just love seeing, even if it wasn't the best movie, I love seeing Marvel movies in theaters. It's so nice.
Sounds great.
Haven't done it in frickin' what, 2 years now?
It's been a while since any sense of normality, I guess.
And it's gonna be at this rate, there might be even longer, given that. Oh boy, things are getting bad again, but it's fine.
Yep. We
It's not
can't
fine,
talk.
but it's
We
fine.
can't get any money if we talk about it. So we're gonna talk about
Yeah,
the
we
the
can.
global
We don't
bad.
get money anyway.
We're gonna talk about the global bad.
The coronavirus?
Shh, it's sensitive.
Sorry, COVID-19. Did you ever say what album we're talking about?
No, we're not yet.
I mean, I know people
We're
can
not
read
on
the
the
title,
album
but
yet.
like it's normally
What?
said at some point in the intro.
This isn't the intro. This is life updates.
Yeah, after the intro.
No, this is so. With like all the Bond movies that eventually come out, we're taking a little note from them, and we're gonna have our intro after the life updates from here on out.
You
And
mean
from here
Bond
on out, I
movies?
mean this
Like
episode.
like like Live and Let Die?
Wasn't that a fucking was it Wings
It's a
song?
Bond movie. Yeah, it was a Wings song. They wrote the theme song for that movie.
Oh, that explained a lot.
Yeah. And
I didn't
who
know.
was a member of Wings?
Yeah, I get it. Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney this. Paul
Paul
McCartney
McCartney was
that.
a member of Wings, and we're covering his album Ram that he did with his wife
I
Linda.
can't believe you segued into that, and I'm not even. I didn't even reach. I didn't even say anything. I got a COVID chip in my arm. I will live forever.
5G.
5G, 5G, 5G,
5G.
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 Anyway,
5G. 5 This is going to be a pain for me to sync up.
here's the news. Idols to provide local NHS workers with 2,000 free tickets to an upcoming Bristol gig. James Blake announces new album, Friends That Break Your Heart, coming out the 10th of September. Darkside releases a new album titled Spiral. Another single from Big Red Machine titled Phoenix. Matt, how's things going in the your sphere?
My God, lots of stuff happening in my sphere, and some stuff outside my sphere. There's a new Lorde song called Stoned at the Nail Salon. There's a new Camila Cabello song called Don't Go Yet. It's very, very Latin influenced, and she also announced her next album, Familia, which no release date on that, but probably this year. That's fun. She hasn't released anything in like 2 years, so that's good. Lil Nas X has released a new song called Industry Baby, featuring Jack Harlow, and it was co-produced by Kanye West, who has also been in the news this week because, speaking of Kanye West, he was supposed to release a new album called Donda this week. That did not happen.
No, it didn't. It's just a figment of your imagination, my imagination, and also the people who were in the listening party's imagination.
Donda never existed. It never will exist. It doesn't currently exist.
It is a figment of our imagination.
And finally, John Bon Jovi covered the Harry Styles song Watermelon Sugar during a charity fundraiser set. So that's kind of weird. It's kind of a weird choice, but it was a choice that was made. And that's all I have. Not a lot happened this week. Just a lot of singles mainly. It's interesting when the biggest thing you have to talk about is that an album did not come out.
Well, like with old news, it comes to an end at some point. Anyway, let's talk about Ram, my favorite
Ram?
album. It was released in the 17th of May, 1971, and was self-produced by Paul McCartney and Linda. Would you look at that?
What do you mean your favorite album?
It is not my favorite album.
Okay. Yeah, so Ram by Paul and Linda McCartney, Paul and his wife Linda. It's Paul's second post-Beatles album between the completely self-made McCartney album where he played all the instruments himself, produced it himself. Really the only other person who worked on that album was Linda, and the formation of his band Wings, his second band. And this album is technically a collaboration with his then wife Linda, but for the most part, her contributions are limited to backing vocals, which he provided on pretty much every solo Paul album and Wings album, including McCartney 1 and McCartney 2. And she also has some writing credits and co lead vocals on one song. This is also the first post Beatles Paul album in which he hired other musicians, since its first one was completely self made, and the drummer who they got for this album stuck around and became the drummer for Wings. There was also an instrumental version of this album that was recorded and released in 1977 called Thrillington, which Paul released under the name Percy Thrills Thrillington.
That is a terrible name.
It is, and I don't know why they chose to release it then, but it's fine. Now, this album, as well as McCartney 1, was not super well received when it came out, but nowadays, Ram is widely regarded as one of, if not Paul's best solo album, maybe even including his work with Wings. That is not why I chose it. I actually chose it because this year marks its 50th anniversary, and unfortunately we're not getting a big remaster like we did for a couple late 60s Beatles albums when they turned 50. But sure enough, without even realizing it, I have once again picked an album that is considered the artist's best. Did you know that we've done that for every episode of this podcast so far?
I mean, no. I mean, the albums I've chosen, I'm trying to think.
They've all been magnum opuses.
But the Phoenix one is like, I feel like that's just their most known. It isn't their best.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is, well, they're most well known. That's pretty much what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, I plan to break that trend soon, but for now, let's take a look and see why this album was panned at the time, but is now considered a masterpiece. And so let's frickin' just get into it with track 1, Too Many People, the first song in the Paul McCartney versus John Lennon saga.
I'm pretty sure this was a dig on the amount of people that were probably working on this.
What?
Too many people. Too many people
there
not
weren't
doing
that
anything.
many.
I mean, it's okay. It's an okay start.
Yeah, this song is all about John Lennon, pretty much blaming him for the breakup of the Beatles, complaining about his preachiness in his solo work, without ever actually name-dropping John. Now, John did not take this lightly, writing the song for his 1971 solo album, Imagine, called How Do You Sleep? And you know how rap artists nowadays are always making songs to like very directly insult other rappers, and everyone eats them up and calls them diss tracks?
Yeah.
This is that, with lines like, those freaks was right when they said you was dead, and the only thing you done was yesterday. How Do You Sleep is biting. So Paul ultimately decided to try and bury the hatchet with a song on the first Wings album, Wildlife, also in 1971, called Dear Friend. And within the last few years, Paul has been really adamant in interviews that he and John were on good terms before John was killed in 1980, so maybe that did something. But yeah, I really wonder what it was like in 1971 for former Beatles fans experiencing that back and forth drama, and Too Many People was sort of the start of all of it.
What I thought was also like that the reasons you noted its significance, I guess, with the lyrics is kind of what surprised me. I had also read that like little bits of it are kind of like digging at Lennon.
Oh yeah.
And because of that,
very small things, too many people preaching practices, too many hungry people losing weight.
And I thought because of that, it made the album a little bit more interesting for me, because otherwise I would have probably just viewed it the way I always look at all the other Paul McCartney material.
Which is?
Wonderful Christmas Time. Nothing beats that. Nothing beats it.
You're right. The epitome of Paul McCartney's solo work, Wonderful Christmas Time.
I just wish it was so good. I wish that Bruce Springsteen would make a cover of it.
I like this song musically. I think the guitar work is excellent on it, both the lead guitar and the country-like acoustic guitar that closes out the song. But personally, I have a bit of trouble getting past the immaturity of the lyrics. It's the same reason I don't enjoy diss tracks today, other than generally not being a big fan of rap. I just think that using your creative outlet to put someone else down is a really bad look, and I feel the same way about How Do You Sleep, so...
I feel the opposite. I feel like it can be done tastefully, but rarely has that ever been done. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know enough examples of it, but I do know that there are some examples where it can be done tastefully.
Do you think it was done tastefully here?
I don't remember the lyrics. I'm a song person. What I will say is that the guitar solo was decent.
Yeah. Track 2, Three Legs. Possibly another dig at John and the other former Beatles, but it's much more vague than Too Many People. And since it's heavily metaphorical, it can easily be read as being about anything, or any situation. I just think people might have assumed it's about that given that it comes right after the previous track.
I don't understand. Why 3 legs? 3 legs, you can't run, can't walk. 4 legs, you can run, but only if you're like an animal or something. I don't get it. Why 3 legs?
Because John, George, and Ringo.
It has a horse for a video. Has digs in it. Dig a pony.
Dig a pony.
Also, the song was okay.
Yeah, I'm not huge on this one, although I don't necessarily dislike it. It's got an almost bluesy kind of melody going on, so rhythmically it's very simple. And Paul has a good voice for songs in this style. It works, but it's not great.
I go into a Paul McCartney album, and I think Paul McCartney's gonna do Paul McCartney. And I get Paul McCartney. You, the viewer, can figure that out.
Well, I don't know how I feel about you saying that, because like Paul has done so many different styles, and even just on this album, there's so many different styles.
I think of Paul as a jack of all trades, to be honest. But that isn't to downplay his like achievements at all. No. And I will say that I do like the album as like a whole, but whenever I think of each song alone, they don't really do much for me. This one, the same thing.
Well, let's move on to track 3, Ram On.
See, the thing is that I actually like this song.
Yeah.
And I like how the instrumentation slowly grows over the song.
Yeah. And how like it starts going from a distant ukulele piano melody with some synth effects on it to like a simple ukulele track with one verse repeated 3 times. Ram on, give your heart to somebody soon, right away, right away.
I really liked it. That's probably the one of the few songs I liked on the album where I could like see myself listening to it past today.
So what you're saying is I've once again picked an album that you don't like.
No, like literally a couple of moments ago, I just said I like the album. I just don't like the songs like as a single thing.
So I've somewhat succeeded at finally picking an album you enjoy, but I haven't picked an album you love yet.
Yeah, I really, that day, the day you find an album that I love, that will be the day. That will be the day I do absolutely nothing. I'll just admit that I'm surprised, and you'll get nothing but a cookie.
It's just another day.
Yep, it'll be just another day. It'll be just another day where I'm slightly caught off guard. I'll be like, you know what? You did well.
I really like the echoey backing vocals from Linda and Paul and the other band members, and Paul's little ad-libs between the second and third verse, which are very Beatle-esque, like something from Lady Madonna or Obladi Oblada. This wasn't originally in my Paul McCartney playlist on Spotify from the first time I listened to this album, but after listening to it again for this podcast and really paying attention to the background elements of it, I really like this song. So it's in there now.
So you have a rotation of Paul McCartney songs, and only Paul McCartney songs?
Yes, including his Beatles and Wings work. Oh my god, I have so many freaking playlists. And the Beatles are like the only artists I'll do this for, because I have a Beatles playlist that's just Beatles songs, and then I have a Paul McCartney playlist, a John Lennon playlist, a George Harrison playlist, and a Ringo Starr playlist. And the Ringo and Paul ones are the only ones that are complete, because I've heard their full solo discographies. And when I listen to George and John's solo discographies, I'm going to make a big like Beatles mega mix playlist, which has like the Beatles songs and the solo songs from all of them, and it's going to be freaking huge. And normally that's what I'll do for other artists that I enjoy with my Spotify playlist. I'll put their solo songs in the playlist anyway, but because there's just so many here, I feel like they all deserve their own.
I feel like if I had to do that, I would never want to actually play it because Spotify Premium, I don't have that.
Well, I do. Get fucked.
Fuck you. Okay, number 4, track 4, Dear Boy.
Dear Boy, don't you fucking steal my job. How dare you?
Something Beach Boys.
Yeah, this is where I think the album really starts to pick up, with just a string of great songs.
Pick up?
Oh, okay, yeah.
All right. I mean, I'm gonna blatantly say this. I do feel like I do enjoy a fair bit of Paul McCartney's music, but my biggest problem is saying something that isn't something that has already been said about his work in general. And that's literally all I wrote for this song.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, okay, listen. The Beach Boys line I wrote, that was all I really thought of it, because it did really remind me of that kind of like, there's a genre for it, but it really reminded me of what Pet Sounds did.
Wall of Sound?
Not the Wall of Sound, but, well, yeah, I guess. But, like, I mean composition-wise.
Yeah. A lot of this album, I feel like, is Paul taking the stuff he learned from being in the Beatles and those like late Beatles like production techniques, a lot of which were inspired by Pet Sounds, an album we'll get to eventually, and taking those production tactics and writing tactics and making a full album of it. Because McCartney 1, I'm personally not a big fan of McCartney 1, And given that he did it all himself, it was a very different experience. And personally, I don't think it fully worked, at least not as well as McCartney 2 did in 1980. But with Ram, with hiring other musicians and writing all the songs with Linda and just making it an actual band production that Paul still has full control over, I think this is like on par with actual Beatles albums. I think that's why it works so well.
I disagree with that comment. I don't. I don't know to feel about that. I would say that this album's better than a couple of the first few albums that the Beatles have put out. I'd say
Oh,
it's
I'm
better
not
than.
saying it's better than than all Beatles albums. There are
No, no, no.
certainly Beatles
You said
albums I like more than
you said it was
but
on
it's on
par.
par. I
I'm
definitely
just
think it's on
thinking
par with the
like
better Beatles albums.
I don't agree with that at all.
Well, that's fine. Another song, Dear Boy, that John thought was directed at him, but it was actually directed at Linda's ex-husband and about how much he missed out by splitting up with Linda. This song has so many freaking layers. There's like 2 or 3 different backing vocal lines, new instruments added as the song progresses, even though it starts with just piano and vocals. And the whole time, Paul's lead vocals have this sort of filter over them, like he's speaking through a can or something. And it almost makes them too quiet compared to the backing vocals and instrumentation, yet they remain intelligible and audible despite how much is going on in the song. I love it.
The magic of EQing and compressing.
Hell yeah. Track 5, Uncle Albert / Admiral Halsey, the first single, and also Paul's first solo #1 single. You know what I was talking about in the last episode about songs that are connected not being separate tracks? This is what I meant.
Can I like half a song? No?
Yeah, which half?
No,
Which half
you
do you
said
like?
they're both connected.
They are connected, but which half
Yeah,
do you like?
yeah. Which half? Uncle Albert.
Ah,
The guitar before the switch a bit later in the song was great, in my opinion.
yeah. There's all these cool like effects between the verses of the Uncle Albert part, like rain and thunder and bird noises, but they managed to work better than I think those sounds do in other songs because they matched the timing and rhythm of the song, making them still maintain a sort of musical quality. And then of course there's the telephone effect and Paul doing an old-timey voice on the third verse.
I don't like the Admiral song.
Yeah, then it transitions to the Admiral Halsey section, which is done, in my opinion at least, so well and naturally. The transition is done so well and naturally, even though it's going from a slow tempo song to a much more upbeat one. And yes, the song is campy and jokey, but that's what makes it good, in my opinion. I feel like Paul never really did songs like this very often after Ram, but he did them so much while in the Beatles. And the Hands Across the Water part is like such a fun chorus to sing along to, in my opinion.
I realize at this point in the album, I kind of start feeling like I feel like this is an album where I ended up liking bits of it and not like whole songs of it or whatever. I like aspects of it more. So I wrote this down. Hands across my ears, drown me in water.
Also, this song won a Grammy in 1971 for Best Arrangement accompanying
Dear
vocals.
God.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll admit the arrangement's really good, but
You just don't like goofy songs.
no.
Except on Trout Mask.
I do like goofy songs. And they aren't from Trout Mask. I like half of the song. I don't like the other half. The other half
Not
is
goofy part.
I don't know. Listen, hey, if I didn't like goofy songs, I wouldn't like I Am the Walrus or Glass Onion.
Glass Onion's not that goofy.
Glass Onion's pretty fucking goofy if you know like what the lyrics mean.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, I think it's pretty goofy.
We'll get to it eventually.
Ha. Okay.
Track 6, Smile Away. A very traditionally structured rock and roll song with a lot of instrumental cliches that are instead done with vocals. It's very creative.
I can smell my dislike for the song a mile away.
What? Why?
I don't really like the dubas. I don't like anything like it.
The what?
The scatting.
Ah.
The dubas, the
vocalizations over the
yeah, and
over
like
the
for whatever
guitar.
fucking weird reason, like my thoughts had flipped by the second half of it.
Interesting.
I don't know. It clicked for me the second half. I was like, you know what? This ain't bad. This ain't bad. It's probably the closest thing I can say to like almost liking it.
Interesting. There's this really interesting sound on it, and I think it's the bass. It has like a lot of feedback on it, creating an almost like distorted effect that gets louder and quieter depending on the part of the song.
I haven't paid that much attention to it, actually. That's interesting. Might have to give it another listen at some point.
Yeah. It's not really a lyrically complex song at all, just a nice little jam song. Track 7, Heart of the Country. changing it up a bit with a more folky song.
When I'm 64,
Yeah.
it's not doing anything for me.
Well, I know this is exactly what you complained about in the last song, but I love the little vocalizations and scatting he does alongside the acoustic guitar solo bits.
It reminded me too much of what I noted earlier.
Yeah. Also, when Paul said, I want a horse, I want a sheep, I want to get me a good night's sleep, I felt that.
So wait, you want to go out in the country and have a farm?
I want a horse, I want a sheep, and I want sleep.
You can't have those and have sleep.
Tell that to Paul McCartney. Tell that to
Dreamers.
John Lennon, who's asking how does Paul McCartney sleep. He doesn't, because he has a horse and a sheep and a farm.
You know what? That is a good point. It's like a call and response, but Lennon doesn't know how to do that.
Is that true? I mean, Paul does it way more often, but yeah, I guess John didn't do that a lot.
He said, "How do you sleep?" Paul's response before Lennon even had any words to say.
Track 8, Monkberry Moon Delight.
I like the instrumental.
Oh, yeah.
I like the instrumental and the bridge, I mean.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or like towards the end of the bridge, I mean.
This is by far the heaviest song on this album. Maybe one of Paul's heaviest songs ever, at least vocally.
What happened and I forget. I only cared about the music.
So the lyrics are complete nonsense, mostly comprised of inside jokes from things said by Linda's daughter Heather, who interestingly provided some backing vocals on this song.
So why did you say it was heavy then?
Paul's vocals, he's like going like, oh, he's like singing this how he sang Helter Skelter.
Oh.
Oh yeah. And I mean, the instrumentation is too, but there's definitely much heavier instrumentation on other Paul songs.
You know what I heard? I heard some proto Guns N' Roses screaming at the end of the song.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And how do you feel about that?
Didn't do anything for me.
I dig the crap out of this song. It's another great jam song that I wish there was a live version of, but there's not. Track 9, Eat at Home, the third single. Another traditional rock and roll song, maybe even an homage to Buddy Holly.
Day Tripper.
Day Tripper. You don't have to compare every song to a Beatles song.
Why? Because they sound like it. It sounds so close to that, it bothers me. I know that like the majority of this was recorded by Paul McCartney. It was at this point where I'd realize like, wow. Like I it's so strange to think of like a multi-instrumentalist, at least back in the day, because back then that would have required like a hefty amount of time with each instrument. And don't get me wrong, like I know that there are multi-instrumentalists today, but the tools they had back then are so primitive.
Oh yeah.
Compared to the stuff like nowadays,
I mean,
it shocks me that anybody would attempt to do that.
I'm baffled that any of the late Beatles albums were produced as well as they were.
They had some weird shit back then.
Oh yeah.
Like even nowadays, like I mean, I don't know anybody who gets close to some of those things personally. Yeah. Like out of things that people take and run with, nobody has done late Beatles as well as Beatles.
Yeah.
And I know a bunch of people do a bunch of psychedelic rock, but there hasn't been that like with like I'm gonna use this as an example with like some of the earlier Radiohead stuff like the Bends or whatever. Then we had Coldplay, and then we also had Muse come out of that. We don't have anything from late Beatles, I'd say, and I wonder why. And I part of me thinks it's because like nobody has been able to kind of replicate that kind of like studio magic in those albums.
Yeah, but yeah, Eat at Home, very repetitive, very simple, but still catchy and easy to get hooked on.
The song also means nothing to me.
Great.
And the solo didn't help either.
Track 10, Long-Haired Lady, a 6-minute tribute to Linda.
I wasn't too sure how much I would enjoy the song, but I ended up enjoying it more than I thought.
I'm mad.
Why?
Why do we always have opposite opinions on these albums?
I enjoyed the end of the verses the most.
Yeah, the instrumentation on this feels very floaty and a little bit tropical with the ukulele bits halfway through.
You know, this also reminds me of another Beatles song.
Oh boy.
Boy, you're gonna carry that weight. Gonna carry that weight a long time.
That's very generous to the song.
Or Hey Jude.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. Yeah, the notable thing about this song, though, other than its length, is Linda's vocals. Now, honestly, I've never been a big fan of her voice. It's really good for backing vocals on this album and all the Wings albums. But when she tries to do lead, it doesn't really work very well, in my opinion. Like, there's this somewhat obscure Wings song called Seaside Woman, which was released under the band name Susie and the Red Stripes, and Linda sings lead on it, as well as the song Cook of the House on Wings' 1976 album Wings at the Speed of Sound. And they're just not good. She doesn't have that much vocal range, and yet Paul released an album full of songs sung by her called Wild Prairie in 1998, a few months after she died. Like, it's a nice tribute to her, but only the final song on it, Appaloosa, does anything for me. Anyways, I thought that was notable since she has a few lead vocal bits on the song.
I thought Linda's vocals were okay.
There's also a cool remix of this song on the 2005 album Twin Freaks, which does a lot more for me than this version does. I recommend it to anyone who did or didn't like this song.
All right.
Track 11, Ram On, Reprise.
Can you take me back where I came from? Can you take me back?
What song made me think about that? There was another song on this. It may have been this one that made me think about that. I don't know. There's not much to say about this one. It's just a reprise of Ram On. But it does have a little added bit at the end that was later turned into the Wings song, Big Barn Bed, for their 1973 album, Red Rose Speedway.
I actually like this song, despite how short it was.
I mean, I like Ram On, so of course I like it. Track 12, the final track, The Backseat of My Car, the second single, closing the album with a tribute to teenage love, road trips, and sneaking around parents.
I like the instrumentation a lot in the song, and it at times reminds me of Billy Joel's The Stranger.
Or does Billy Joel's The Stranger remind you of this?
Listen, I get it. I know how this shit works. Don't get me started.
Time is linear.
Time is a flat circle. Anyway, this is the only other full song that I like from the album.
What was the other one? Ram On?
Ram On and Ram On Reprise.
Alright. This might be my favorite song on the album. Between the soft balladness and excellent harmonies of the verses, the dynamic tempo shift for different parts of the song, the orchestration from the New York Philharmonic Orchestra, this has everything a great closing track should have. It rules. What are you doing?
I don't know. He did that in the song.
Okay. Final thoughts on the album.
Album's alright. That's literally, that was my conclusion.
You're kidding. Tell me you wrote more.
I did not. I'm not fucking
Album's
with you. I wrote
alright.
2 words. Album's alright.
Next album you pick, I'm gonna say album's alright. Leave. I'm gonna walk out.
Don't worry. That's what I wrote. Here's what else I have to say. When I hear about its significance, I wonder what people see in this album that I don't. Because to me, I see an okay album. Like, maybe well, how would I put it? The album's good. Don't get me wrong. As like a whole, I just don't see why it's praised so highly. Personally, I probably will never listen to this again, as of like a full thing. But I will probably listen to those 3 songs that I like. Or 2.5, if you think about it. And I feel like if I wanted to go to a Paul McCartney album, I might as well listen to Paul McCartney 2 or something. I don't know.
Is that your favorite solo Paul album?
Temporary Secretary.
That's his favorite solo Paul album. Great. Okay. Well, my final thoughts. There is so much genre variety on this album, more than most Paul, Wings, or even Beatles albums, and it's extremely well produced. None of the instruments or vocal lines sound too quiet or too loud, and they mix together so well in every song, even the ones I don't like as much. Yet, almost none of these songs are ever played live. I've heard all of Paul's live albums and seen all of his official concert videos, and the only song from this album that I've heard him do was Too Many People on The Space Within Us from his 2005 tour, and he misremembered it as a Wings song. The songs on this album deserve better. And no, it's not my favorite Paul McCartney album either. That would be Flaming Pie, or Wings Over America if we're counting live albums. But it might be a close second, especially after re-listening to it for this and discovering how much I like Ram On.
I think I know why he doesn't play it live.
Because it was poorly received at the time?
No, Linda.
Well, I get that. But even before that, even before she passed, then again, there weren't that many live albums before that. There's still not a lot of times that I've seen, I haven't heard Wings Over Europe. That's an album that I haven't heard. And apparently there's 2, I think they play Eat at Home and another one from this album on that. But otherwise, I really haven't heard any other than that one performance of Too Many People. But the thing is, he still plays Wings songs, and Linda was in that band. He still plays McCartney 1 songs. Linda was around for that.
I don't know then. That just makes this album like an anomaly then.
It is. It's an outlier, yet I looked at a lot of lists before listening to the album and getting the background information and stuff and doing all that research. I looked at people's lists of ranking Paul's solo albums. sometimes including Wings, sometimes not including Wings, and of course ranking all the Beatles solo albums. And Ram was always very close to the top, if not number one, Paul McCartney album. And that really surprised me because I was trying to figure out, like, okay, did I pick the artist's most well-received album again? And go figure, I kind of did, but that's retrospect. People like it in retrospect. It's a cult album, pretty much. It's a cult classic, but people didn't like it at the time. And I'm curious, like, what I was trying to find out what Paul album people like a lot now and liked a lot at the time. And weirdly enough, the most consistent other album that I found that was high on these lists was his 2005, I want to say, album, Chaos and Creation in the Backyard.
Yeah,
apparently people I really like that album, but apparently everyone really likes that album,
well,
which is weird because you don't really hear a classic rock artist have that much of a success or that popular of a modern album that late.
Well, Nile Godrich is like literally a god at like producing other people's music.
Did he produce that album?
Yes, he's produced that album. He's like the lead producer for like every Radiohead album past the Bends.
Dang. But
So,
yeah, other
guy
than that,
knows
Ram
good
was
stuff.
like one of the only other albums that other than Wings albums, that consistently topped Chaos and Creation on those lists.
Okay, well, I will say this. I've never listened to McCartney 2, so...
What?
What?
Did you just say you've never listened to McCartney 2?
No, I haven't.
What? Hold on. What other Paul albums have you heard?
Wonderful Christmas Time.
No, albums. Like, have you? Is this
Wonderful
the only
Christmas
full?
Time.
Is this the only full Paul album you've heard?
Yes, but I have heard other Paul material, which is what I say. I don't think I claim to have listened to another Paul album, I believe.
I just always assumed you've heard all of McCartney 2.
No, I haven't. I just said temporary secretary. That's what I said. I said that. I didn't say I heard any. No, I haven't. This is my first full listen of Paul McCartney's Ram. Yeah. And my first album of his that I've listened to.
I don't know why that surprises me so much. I don't know. It's just being a person who listens to an album every day and has heard so many full artist discographies. I don't know. I guess I just have expectations that other people have heard certain things.
I don't know.
Particularly when they reference temporary secretary all the time.
I found out about it because there was a remix that somebody did on Ed Banger Records.
Part of it. I remember that. That was the first time I heard about the song. What was that? That was a couple years ago.
It's like 2015. 16?
Yeah, you like played the song in like probably a Discord call, and I was like, "This is not Paul McCartney," and you're like, "Yeah, it is," and I was like,
"It was made like the lead was made by like Paul McCartney."
Well, yeah, but you also played the original song, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And like, I don't know, that whole album is wild. Every song, it's like
Trout dream of an album.
Every song on that album is like temporary secretary. Not actually, you know what? Actually, that's a bit of an extreme. It's not. They're not that weird, but they are produced like that. Anyways, we've been talking about frickin' every other Paul album other than Ram right now.
I've mentioned Beatles albums that aren't Ram.
Well, yeah, but I think if we were to compare,
here's my main
Ram
takeaway: if you want to listen to something that isn't Ram, literally the Beatles.
Yeah, because I would say this is the closest Paul, having heard all of them and every Wings album.
Okay.
This is shut up. This is the closest Paul Beatles work, post Beatles work by Paul, to sounding like something the Beatles would have done.
Paul post Beatles work, very good.
Yes.
Yes. Fast and Bulbous.
Do you have any music recommendations? Did you forget?
Wet Hair by Japandroids.
I'm gonna kill him. Anyways, this is the last episode of On Friday because I'm gonna kill Andrew. I'm gonna recommend a song from the new album from the pop funk band Lawrence called Hotel TV. It's their cover of NSYNC's It's Gonna Be Me, featuring brass tracks. It's awesome. If you like It's Gonna Be Me, I highly recommend you check out this version of it. It's really incredible. I love it. I hope they play it when I see them live in December. It's gonna be dope. And that's Ram.
Ram?
Ram bam, thank you, ma'am.
Dear God. Do I have any? I don't know if I have any. I don't have anything funny to say. Sorry, guys. Come back next week when I actually have something funny to say. Who knows? I have a knock-knock joke for you guys. Knock-knock.
Who's there?
The video's supposed to end.
The video's supposed to end who?